I think I may have mentioned once or twice before on this show that I am a graduate of Rutgers University. Jen doesn't particularly care for my Scarlet Knight credentials. She was a Colorado Buffalo and a Northwestern. What is Northwestern again?
Wildcats.
Wildcats. That's right.
And St. Mary's is Rattlers, but you know, that has nothing to do with my thoughts about Rutgers. I don't have thoughts about Rutgers. I just make fun of the fact that you always tell me that you went to Rutgers. I would say the same thing, whatever school it was, just that you always tell me where you went to school. I would always mock that. I don't have a problem with Rutgers. It's a good school. Isn't it a good public school?
Yeah, it's a public Ivy. It's like you know.
Okay, so what? I have no problem with Rutgers. It would be wherever you went that you would tell me, I would be mocking. Okay, it's not Rutgers.
Here's the issue here. Okay. So this is a part of New Jersey where there is a sizable Jewish population that does go there. The Jewish diaspora is very strong in this part of New Jersey, and the Hillel, Hillel is very powerful at Rutgers. And I don't know for certain if it was Hillel that hosted this event. However, they decided to host IDF soldiers. You know, just because that's just so fucking normal.
Well, that's who the organization that Hillel is part and parcel with JNF, which is the Jewish National Fund, which is at the root. That is the base root of funding for all of this stuff. And Hillel is just one of those tentacles. So that is their fund. Like, that's who they are.
A Jewish student decided to make his voice heard.
Killed over 70,000 Palestinians. The IDF has killed over 300 journalists. The IDF has targeted children. The IDF has killed over 1,700 healthcare workers. The IDF have targeted children. Hydra Job, 6-year-old, was shot 335 times. 335 times. When my
Now, I want you to not look at this young man who obviously has a lot of courage. And the one thing I think you would agree is that he's nervous.
Yes.
He probably thought a lot about what he was going to say, or, you know, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to speak up. My grandmother is a Holocaust survivor. This is wrong, what you're doing, etc. But I want you to look at the big hat on that little boy who's sitting in the background with the gestures on his face, with the eye rolling. How dare
no, Mehdi, he's speaking. The IDF soldiers are sitting on a panel, and this is a student that is calling them out.
And yet you get this little twat rag here sitting in the back, making all these gestures as this guy is up there. Again, this is the thing. In real time, you're watching the actions of the Zio state against a person who's trying to be a good Jewish person, separate the two from each other. But guys like him in the big hat do not want there to be any separation. Zero.
Unless you're the Neturei Karta. And they are also Hasidic sect, and they are anti-Zionist. So you can't generalize about the hats.
No. It's unfortunate that it is only one subsect of that group, but there's a lot of them who support the cause, like this kid, because he looks like a kid. I mean, listen, he might be an adult, but you know, I mean, especially today, you know, the one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough that I'd be curious what your thoughts are on, technology has set back cognitive development on youth in such a profound way that somebody who was 18, let's say in 1989 versus 18 today, the level of maturity difference between the two, I would think that there's like a substantial difference.
This is proven. And actually, there is a gentleman who testified before Congress, and I got his name, and I know at some point I had forwarded it, and I do think we reached out to have him on. That's a fact. It's not just speculation. What you're saying is actually a fact. that these kids are not developing in terms of like emotional, social, cognitive problem solving, because everything is in the palm of their hand. So no, it's a fact. And also it isn't even just the social thing, it's the technology in schools.
Yes.
Even using technology in schools for educational purposes has been dumbing down our people.
Oh, that's on purpose.
Yeah.
That's on
So I'm just
purpose.
saying, it isn't even just the cell phones and the social media. When you want to talk about what's really happening, because it could be what people think, oh, well, this is very educational, and this is an educational show, and this is educational software, and all these schools with all this high-tech app.
Well, listen,
Children
I mean,
cannot learn like that. But anyhow, we digress.
Well, this is also one of the reasons why, and I haven't covered it much. Maybe I'll probably try to cover it on Saturday with the election coming up. But this is one of the reasons why Jeff Yes supports Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie is a huge advocate for homeschooling and the dismantlement of the Department of Education. And I got to tell you, the more you learn about the broken system that is our education system in the United States, I understand why there's a massive movement for homeschooling, because there's a lot of things that are not being taught. The other thing about homeschooling, you can keep these things out of your kids' hands when they're in school. I mean, who the hell knows?
No, I'm telling you, they take them, even when they take them away. This isn't the problem. Okay. This is, that's what I'm trying to explain.
Well,
to
it
you.
is, but it isn't the problem. It's a problem. It's not the problem.
Yes. They have at school now where kids in classrooms have to put their cell phone in this thing up at the front of the class, and they don't have it during the class. So let's take that out of the equation. But then the teacher is using some form of tech to teach the lesson, or the kids are reading from online books and not actual books. Every part of that is a problem. It isn't just social cell phone stuff. It has nothing. I mean, that is a big part of the social issues. But as far as the cognitive delays and developmental problems that we're seeing in education, it has to do with the tech in education. It's a problem. But nobody wants to talk about that because people are going to profit off of it.
Touche.
Grandmother, my Jewish grandmother told me about the Holocaust. She told me never again. This is not never again. Never again means never again for everybody. And if justice is real, then the IDF will go down. You guys will be prosecuted at the Hague. You guys will go down. Justice will prevail.
They called the police. Although, no, actually, maybe the police were already there, because those people don't feel safe.
Because they don't feel safe.
God forbid one of their own speaks up. Oh, he's just a bad Jew.
Yeah.
You know, that's the phrase that goes around. By the way, the youths that are in the crowd are not that mature.
Yes, Israelism did expose Hillel. But for those of us who know about Hillel personally, nothing in that was remotely surprising.
The whole basis of their ideology, and again, I wouldn't care. I don't think anybody would care. You can believe whatever you want. My old friend from back home, that's a proud Zionist. Again, I don't think anybody would care about any of this if they didn't have the systemic control over our lives and how our country executes its governmental and political policies on behalf of this genocidal ideology. I don't think anybody would care. You could be whoever you want to be. You could say whatever you want. You could be a shitbag from now until the cows come home. But when you pull the levers of power and you're doing it in our names and you are destroying our country from the inside out, yeah, I have a problem with that. And everybody else should too. And if there is going to be technicalities along the way in terms of how people speak and how they feel, people hate Jews. That's the reality of life. People hate blacks. If you as Jews, you think you got it bad, try having dark skin. See what that's like.
Well, the Jews don't like that, you know. And again, I am an absolutist about this. People are allowed to hate whoever they want to hate. Not only are they
Yeah.
allowed to hate people, they're allowed to talk about it. They're allowed to say it. They're allowed to say mean things. They're allowed to have all sorts of things. They can say whatever they want. And again, I'm in favor of knowing where my bigots are. I like to know
I
who the
agree.
bigots are. So you please, by all means, show yourself.
Fly
But
terrorist flag.
again, and that brings us like full circle to that ridiculous resolution about like patrolling people's anti-Semitic thoughts. So that was where it all comes down. Like, let's just say everything that Candace and Hassan Piker said was completely, literally anti-Jewish. I won't even say anti-Jewish, hating on the Jews, blaming Jews for everything wrong.
Do we have freedom of speech or do we not?
This is the problem. Apparently not. So that's where, and it isn't just about speech. It's about they're really trying to police morality based on immorality. It's not going to work.
And can I also
You
say
can't be simultaneously supporting a Holocaust
Yeah.
and then standing and creating a resolution against somebody that you deem to be anti-Semitic while you're supporting a Holocaust.
And can I say one of the things?
It doesn't
Yeah.
compute.
The thing that they say, this is what the Zios say. They say, you have the freedom of speech, you don't have the freedom from consequences. Well, what consequences do you mean? You mean to tell
People
me that
get fired, and I agree with that. Look, I also agree that you work for a private business, you piss off your boss, you're going to lose your job. I think that sucks, but I also think it sucks to work for somebody that you obviously are that diametrically opposed to.
Yes,
also.
but what you also, yeah, but we have, again, I've experienced this firsthand, where because of what I say, it wasn't just that a person who clearly had a lot of pull was able to get me fired. They did it through threat of action against them. We will harass you. We will make your lives a living hell if you don't do what we say. This is another reason why Zionism is going to fall, because people now are, it takes time to fully understand the ideology, but to also learn the tactics of how they operate. Once people realize that the way that they roll is to essentially be a Gestapo, because that's what they're doing. This is how they, Leora Rez, who runs Stop Anti-Semitism, this is what they do, and they're proud of it. They admit that this is how they roll. That this is, we got them fired.
I feel like these people are not aware. I need to educate people on, like, Skokie, because it seems to me that this has already been decided. So that's what brings me back to we're just lawless now, because we've already decided that you can walk around saying shit about Jews. And as I want people to do that. I do. Please, by all means, announce yourselves. Let us know who you are.
And Gurley Flynn, the other thing that I think I had mentioned when I got fired was that it kind of dawned on me that Keller Williams is a very Christian organization based in Central Texas. And what do we know about Texas? Texas is the biggest Christian Zionist state by a wide margin in this country, a wide margin. So it isn't surprising to me that one of the biggest concentration of Christian Zionism in the country happens to be in the same area where Keller Williams headquarters happens to be. So when what happened, it could be a combination of reasons. But make no mistake, if one of the reasons was I spoke out against Israel, and that goes against the Christian Zionist values of the organization, that's their decision. It's a private company. They could do what they want.
Exactly.
It's fucked up, and they're going to pay for it in the long run. But for now, they can get away with it. But eventually, the entire country is going to turn on Israel. It's inevitable.
And honestly, the thought police really is just unacceptable.
Nobody wants that. Nobody wants Big
show.
Brother. If there's one thing we know for sure about this country, with the exception of the comfortable shit libs, if you cut them out of the equation, the one thing we know about this country that they take with great pride even though they don't realize that the Fourth Amendment doesn't exist anymore. People's right to privacy and to not be harassed is actually very important to pretty much not every citizen, but most citizens. People that live comfortably, that think they're above the law.
Where I live, it matters a whole lot.
It matters a lot, like it does. This is the reason why the true libertarian conservatives of this country believe in the Constitution, because those rights matter to them, because they don't have a lot. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of resources, but what they have are their hands and their effort and perhaps the plot of land that they have been able to sustain. And by that measure, having these inalienable rights, which we should all have, that many take for granted, is something that people in rural Georgia, they don't take it for granted. That's why they loved Marjorie Taylor Greene. For people from other parts of the country, they think that she's a Looney Tune. But you know what? Where she was representing people, she was somebody that was revered there. They thought she was as swell as sliced bread or baked banana bread. That's something that's, fairly common in places like that. Very tasty, by the way. Point being, we do this knowing full well, and again, it's not lost on us that our channel is heavily suppressed, that we are dealing with this uphill battle every time we go live, every time we talk about these subjects. And even if we have some disagreements about certain things, yes, like Hassan Piker or even some things about Candace Owens, point is, it's the issues, damn it, and it's the class war, damn it. And the sooner everybody realizes that that is what is making us united, but ultimately divided, because we find ourselves getting distracted or fighting over things that have no relevance. In the grand scheme of things, the fight against this state, this genocidal state, which is one and the same, as you've often said, the State Department is Israel, or the Mossad, and the Mossad is the State Department. They're one and the same. You cannot have these actions going on unless they were on the same page. And they are. And it's all for money and power. That's all it's ever been. So the fight continues.
Accord, Lord, I'm gonna say this. We consider ourselves people, and people that care about justice and fairness and working people. So stop looking for labels in all the wrong places.